perks. Of course, this is the panel for the NES Club. If you're just looking for something else, stay anyways. This will be great, I promise. I'm writer-director Rob McCallum. With me on stage is Jordan Morris, one of the producers of the film. For those of you who don't know what the NES Club is, it's a documentary feature film about one man's quest to amass an entire NES collection in 30 days with no online purchases. And it's also an examination and a critical look at the impact of Nintendo and the NES specifically within video game history and how it's impacted society. If anybody out there is a gamer, and I'm guessing you are since you're at this event, you'll all know how important the NES is as a console. So that's one of the things we're trying to explore and examine with this documentary, while following this guy on the ultimate 8-bit road trip as he crisscrosses across the US and trying to gather this ridiculous collection of amazing NES titles. I think probably the easiest thing to do, and one of the biggest reasons that I've tried to make a big deal of this event, we're showing a world premiere of our trailer today. Thanks. Awesome. It's a Portland exclusive. There's one other event in Canada that will be showing the trailer mid-October, but it won't be shown publicly online until probably early November. The more we edit the film, the more we find little sound bites and cool little cutaways. And with over 100 hours, we're finding great stuff, you know, every minute that we spend editing. So,
and you're still shooting.
And we are still shooting. We're interviewing people and folks here this weekend. We just interviewed Hyperkin, the folks who make the Retron consoles. They got the Retron 5 coming out. I got to play the cool latest board that they had, like not even in the clamshell case or anything like that. It was like super sci-fi geek. It was awesome. Just really excited for you guys to be here, and I guess it's probably just go to the trailer.
Sure.
All right, so can we get the lights for a second? And that huge spotlight as well. There we go. Okay. And all right, just.
Probably be speaking a little bit elevated like this. And this will be like direct address right to the lens.
Oh yeah! This is my collection here. About 100 games right now.
What's missing from your collection that would help, you know, make it complete?
Let's make it a dare. I dare you to go out and get all the Nintendo games.
I dare you to do it.
How about we do it in a month? We'll do it in 30 days.
And he said yes.
Boom. Feels like 30-day Christmas Eve, 30 Christmas Eves in a row. Wayne's World, which I've never seen before.
You're asking me to sell something out of my personal collection.
I'm gonna take a chance and try to negotiate with you guys. One of the regulars there scooped it up at about 9 or 10 a.m. this morning.
So the Jetson saga continues. Yep. We should have been in Cincinnati, possibly even on our way to Indianapolis, but here we are still in Columbus. What happened?
I got it at an exceptional price. The high-priced games I wanted, they weren't willing to budge a cent.
The NES essentially received the baton from the arcade era and ran with it.
Every game they came out with really had a level of success to one degree or another.
For a period of time there, Nintendo was a word used to describe video games in general.
You know, so when you see a Mario, like people are dressed up as Mario for Halloween, or you just see it in so many different places, and everybody instantly knows what that is.
There was just a little magical quality to Nintendo that caught on with the public.
That era of games relied on imagination.
When they came up with a new product, everybody wanted to see it, everybody wanted to play it.
I don't want to sound weird or cliche, man, but I have to say this right now, what is happening, is by far the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. I'd like to know the story for each cart, like what happened to this poor thing, why it's in this condition. Like, it's like someone set a sandwich on it and kind of, I can't even get that off. I don't even know if it's blood. I didn't want to touch it. Yeah.
So that's a first look at essentially what has been production since July. The 30 days took place more or less early August to early September. And like we said, we're still shooting interviews with a lot of great people, and a lot of doors have been constantly opening up for us. with people that we'd never expect to get, but word of mouth has been on our side hugely. We kind of want this panel to be as much Q&A as possible, so if you guys have any questions at any time, please feel free to throw up a hand, ask us anything. The only questions that are kind of off limit, did he get all the games? Which games did he get? Because we don't want to give away the ending, obviously. Again, we hope to have the film done for next year so we can show it here in Portland, so you guys can all be a part of that. We believe in helping the people that support us, and Portland Retro Gaming Expo was a huge entity that wanted us here from the get-go, so it'd be cool to come back and share that with you guys. Had a lot of great stories on the road, as you can imagine.
Start with why. Start with how it happened. Who is this guy? Why are you doing this?
Well, Jay's a guy that I've known for 30 years, easily my best friend, and we talked about wanting to essentially do a documentary on collecting and what could we do that was different than everything out there. Couldn't just follow him around to game stores and stuff like that. There's a lot of that on YouTube already, so we had to make it a little more interesting. So it's like, how can we make going into game stores more interesting? Well, what if we did, like try to collect specifically one system? Okay, that's cool, but then what if we put a time limit on it? And what if we said you had to go on the road and do it in person and no online purchases whatsoever? Then the game show elements really started to crunch against them, because as you lay out the trek of where we go through cities, we've only got a certain amount of hours in each city. So we would start the day in Dallas, hit Austin for a brief period of time, 1 or 2 stores, and then have to be in Houston at night so that the next morning we can hit those stores first thing, and then again hit a few more cities and then be on the road. So he's really got to critically examine what every store or collector has offering and make a decision right then and there if he'll ever see those games again, and if he can afford to pay what they're asking for at the time.
Or hang out, or hold out and wait for a better deal later, like as the clock's ticking down. Do I spend all the money I've got right now to try to land this game, or do I think I'm going to get lucky and find it later? This is pretty fun to watch.
And well, that is one half of it. The other half, of course, is all these cool interviews that you guys saw little excerpts of, and the way that these guys cheered Jay on in his journey, and the little bit of advice that they have for him. Ben Gold, who obviously is a huge gamer, he was featured in both King of Kong and Chasing Ghosts. He won That's Incredible, the first kind of televised video game competition out there. He's a huge collector now, so he was telling Jay, you got to watch, your money and stuff like that. You can't get too attached emotionally. And one of the funny things that Jay had to do when he wasn't finding a lot of games, you'd see him buy other collectibles for other things. He'd buy some PlayStation games. He was really tempted by a sealed Earthbound NES, and he got a Fairchild Channel F at another store. So he finds all these different ways to motivate him to keep the momentum in the rush going, because it's kind of like, imagine saying you have 30 days and all you got to do is buy video games. It's a pretty exciting prospect. And then along the way you get to meet some of your idols and icons who believe in what you're doing and why you're trying to do it.
There's a huge amount of support from the gaming community, and every time we meet one of these celebrities, they seem to open doors for us, and we'd meet another one and bigger and more interesting people, and the networking just kept going and going and going. We felt a lot of momentum. So the film just kept getting better and more interesting as we were going. So it was really also tough to balance the time that we wanted to allow with meeting these icons, and of course letting Jay keep going on his hunt without wasting any of his valuable time too. So we got burned out pretty quickly because there wasn't a whole lot of time to sleep or eat or do any of the other important things that normal people do.
It was full-on days. We'd get up at 7, have breakfast, be on the road so we could get to the first store as soon as they opened, and then lunch, and then more game stores, and then at night it'd be 7 o'clock, have dinner, and then by the time we're done the day it's 10 o'clock, and then I'm logging all the footage for another 3-4 hours, so I know exactly what we got, what we have to change for the next day, whether it's a shooting style, whether we didn't shoot enough, or something Jay needs to do as far as notes. He's got to speak and stuff like that, so you guys know what's going through his head, like why is he passing this scheme up? Why is he not doing that? So just all these little things that constantly take time, and you multiply that rush experience across 30 days, and it's a bit of an onslaught. But Jordan was right when he's saying the community just really opens its arms up to this. We spent a whole day with Todd Rogers. If you guys don't know who Todd Rogers is,
you have to know who Todd Rogers is, right? Todd Rogers, yeah.
Okay, we got a couple back there. He's essentially, he holds over 2,000 world records. He's considered one of the top 5 console gamers of all time. He's nicknamed Mr. Activision. He's got numerous world records. We got to spend an entire day with this guy. He is super knowledgeable. He plays every kind of game there is out there. Atari, Coleco, and television, NES, of course. Master System, all that, to Facebook games, constantly. He just loves video games. And he's just a real cool character. He's like, we're driving back with him to the hotel. He's like, you want me to call Billy Mitchell? Let's call Billy Mitchell. So he whips out a cell phone, and we're talking to Billy Mitchell on speakerphone in traffic through Houston. And he's like, oh, let's call Walter Day. So call Walter Day, who of course is the scorekeeper for Twin Galaxies, the face of that entity. And right then on the spot, Walter's like, this is such a great idea. I want to be involved more. Let's get you guys a Twin Galaxy card. So now we have our own Twin Galaxy card coming out. It's been sent to the press last weekend. It looks great. It has our awesome box art on it. And when we release the film, Walter's even going to give us gold special edition foil versions for everybody who wants to support like the first kind of pressing of the documentary. So again, just unbelievable kind of support. Now, as good as I make it sound, it wasn't without its pitfalls. There was a few stories on the road.
Yeah, let's just describe what this is like. We weren't rolling around in like a luxury tour bus like Aerosmith. We were, how many of us?
There's 6 of us.
In a minivan. And which
with luggage,
smelled
with
worse
camera
every
gear.
day that we were on the road. It got worse in there, and just filled with garbage, like up to the windows, because we didn't have time to clean it. And yeah, it was relentless. We get up in the morning and just drive. So that was while I was on the road trip, my leg of the road trip. That was my job, was to just drive. And after days and days and days of doing nothing but, you just start to get dumber and dumber and dumber as the days go on. And yeah, we got ourselves into trouble. You stop losing the ability to read gauges properly.
So when he says gauges, we're talking about the fuel gauge. In particular, in one instance, we had dropped Todd Rogers off at the airport, coincidentally, and I said, Jordan, how are we doing on gas? Lots of gas. We're great.
Fine.
No
looks
problem.
Good. Looks good. Looks fine as far as I can tell.
We're doing great. So down the road, all of a sudden, there's a loss of power in the vehicle. Jordan starts saying, I think the transmission's gone or something because we slipped a gear.
What could possibly be wrong with this van? It's in great condition. I ran it completely out of gas.
It's completely
dry. At
dry.
highway speeds, it just coughed once and went dead, and then we started to coast down the highway in northern Texas.
Yeah, just north of Houston, so there's that great 4-hour gap between Houston and Dallas where there's nothing.
But another excellent incident of how much the gods are smiling upon us, because I just happened to be right at an off-ramp when it happened, so we rolled off this off-ramp and down this road, which seemed to be going nowhere, but we could see a fuel station sign in the distance, so we were just like, come on, baby, let's keep going. But it ground to a halt just as we were coming up over a rise towards the fuel station. So everybody piled out and pushed the van over the hill and got back in, and it stopped dead again because we didn't push it hard enough. So we got back at it again, we pushed the van even more, and it went over the hill, and without power steering, had to go through an intersection and over.
U-turn.
And we probably lost only 10 minutes. If it had been anywhere else in the world, we probably would have been down for hours.
Yeah, there was a lot of panic at the time, but just over the treetops, you could see the crest of the Chevron sign. And I knew we were fine, but there was going to be a little bit of muscle work at the same time. And little stuff like that happened all the time. You saw it in the clip in the trailer. There's a clip that I say something like, oh, the Jetson saga continues. We were supposed to be in Cincinnati, possibly on our way to Indianapolis, but here we are in Columbus again. Well, that came as a result of a rival collector who knew we were in town, and some of the stores had stocked up in anticipation of our arrival, and we were told to come at a certain time so they could display them all nicely and clean them. Well, this collector, who's a regular at all the stores, went to all the stores and started scooping up the games on us. But that wasn't going to be the end of it, because we knew this collector, we got to know him after, so we started bargaining for some of these games back. So that's why we had to stay in Columbus the second night, but then we had to, fix all our travel arrangement plans after. We had to find a new hotel in Columbus that night. We had to modify the plans for the next day and squish everything down to a compact schedule so Jay could still hit the same amount of stores, have ample amount of time to do this, and more importantly, just like the crew could rest and do this, because doing that meant they had to work 3 or 4 extra hours that night, get up a few extra hours early, and just go, 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 go. With 2 cameras, a sound person, me directing and trying to constantly figure out things on the fly. Guys like Jordan and our other producing partner, Mike, and my wife, Marcy, who are running around getting releases, getting location releases, making sure we can film and all that stuff. It just really adds up, but I gotta tell you, there's no better way to spend the summer. There's no better way to spend a summer than with your best buddies on the road, having like a living time capsule of how that happened. Like I said, over 100 hours. And it all being in the name of video games and what really defines you as a person or helped you grow up, which of course is the NES. And seeing everybody, I can see everybody nodding, is that yeah, the NES was the system. And for me, hopefully what you guys will see in the film is When it was the Nintendo era, it wasn't like it is today. There's either Sony fans today or Microsoft fans today, and of course still some Nintendo fans. There's a lot of brand allegiance, but back then it was just Nintendo. You know, like Patrick Scott Patterson says, you know, Nintendo defined what video games were for a while. You know, say, I'm gonna go play Nintendo. I don't go play video games. Everybody was on board with that system. Sure, in Europe and Japan, Sega had a bit of a presence. PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16 was still in the market, but we all know it was really the NES, especially in North America. They just dominated and permeated the culture. And that's kind of what the doc is about, how they did that, why they did that. And to the point that it still has an effect on people today, that they're willing to sacrifice their entire summer to try to collect an entire collection 30 years later.
And interesting things like, why are the young people today still interested in it when there's all this new technology and new gaming systems out there? Why are the kids going back and playing Nintendo? What makes it so special that it just doesn't seem to
on
ever
both
go
fronts,
away?
on both the digital and the virtual console, we're talking like 15, 16-year-old kids who didn't grow up in the 80s, so it's not nostalgia. But the kids that are just discovering it now, that are either finding it on virtual console or going back to pay the extra money, which is $10, $20 a cart for the physical. Why are they doing that? Why do they need that experience? What is it? And then just exploring, what is it about that physical item that as collectors we love to have? Why couldn't Jay just have digital versions of the entire collection? What makes the physical carts? And he's building a huge display for the games that he does have in his room, and I can't wait to go back and film it so you can see that before and after. But why do we need those physical things? What is it about that mystical bond between person and object that imprints those memories that say, yes, it's more than nostalgia, but what is it, you know? So.
And how do you describe to a kid why it's so awesome to have to clean the cart? You know, like, when they can just digitally download it, why is it better to have this frustrating cartridge that you have to keep cleaning it? You know, just the tactile kind of relationship that you have with the console when you're doing it old school like that. So that was really, really an interesting thing to explore too. And talk a bit about the logistics of supporting Jay without spoon-feeding Jay, because a few people were suspicious of us kind of teeing everything up and kind of connecting the dots for him, because he's not allowed to do any online purchases. But some people said, oh yeah, you set everything up and you made sure you got all the games and all that kind of stuff. But absolutely not the case. You can see the chaos that we went through on a daily basis. But address that. How did we support Jay without making sure that it went exactly his way?
Well, essentially, we just set up all the stores that we were going to. We were as much blind as he were, that by the end of the trip, when he'd go into a store and he would get a handful of games, we were feeling the rush as much as he was. We knew the spots that we were going to, more or less, and we would call ahead to other spots on the fly if we had expended the locations that we were going to. Like, say we were in Dallas and I had charted 3 spots because I figured we only had 2 hours, we'd only hit 3 stores. Well, it turns out things changed and we had 5 hours. Well, where else can we go? Google, where are the retro stores? You know, call people up. Who did we just talk to? Oh, you gotta go here, you gotta go here. So
it was really awesome that people at the counter at one store would say, oh, there's a great one down the street over here that's an hour away or whatever like that. Like you say, everybody was really supportive of it and got excited by it as soon as it happened. So the conversation with people on the phone or online was, do you have NES cartridges that we can shop?
Yeah.
But that's about it. We didn't know. So obviously you kept finding the same really common games over and over again, but we didn't. Like,
and I think that's important to show. I mean, I've said before in Kickstarter videos and other YouTube things, I would rather it not wrap up so nice and neat at the 11th hour where he gets everything just in the nick of time. Feels a little artificial to me, as I'm sure it sounds. I'd rather him fall short 200.
Look, stadium events for $1.
Where did that come from?
No, that did not
I'd rather him fall short 200 and watch those 28 days lead up to that excitement, and then to fall short so much and just examine that human condition through that momentum and that despair that would register on his face. That's more interesting to me. And as collectors, I think you guys would get that as well.
Human Despair is good movies. Yeah.
But Jordan's right. We'd talk to people at the counter and they'd be like, oh, we got like 6 other stores in the area. Let me call the general manager and let them know that you're coming. So then boom, we had like green light all these stores. Happened in Dallas, it happened in Pittsburgh. The Exchange in Pittsburgh, great store chains. Austin with Game Over Games, they called down their Houston store and let us go there. Like 2-tiered level stores that had not only video games from current stuff and retro stuff, but also like museum art pieces from like local artists and stuff.
My favorite thing that we'd get from somebody at working the counter, we'd go through all their cabinets and shop everything out in the front of the store, and then we'd be wrapping it up and preparing and starting to pack up. And we'd hear them say, Do you want to see what we have out back?
There was always a vault somewhere. There was always like a hidden cache. So tip number one, if you guys are trying to collect stuff and you're in a store, don't just be, you know, happy with what you see on the
What
shelves.
else have you got? Where's the cool stuff?
You guys got anything new that you haven't cataloged yet? That one works all the time. It's like, oh yeah, you mean these pile of games right here behind the counter that no one can see? Sure, yeah, here. Here you go. Oh, look at this. Here's, you know, a game that's like super rare. Imagine that. We haven't priced it yet, so we'll just give it to you for, how about this? Okay.
$3 sound fair?
Yeah, sounds
Yes.
fair. Nobody wants these old games. Sure, $3.
It's really dirty. Yeah, what else do we deal with along the way?
Just.
Oh, we should point out also that in the trailer, I just remembered there, that you heard Jay say that his collection was about 100 cartridges big when he started. That was before the dare happened, and in order for him to go through the dare, he basically had to ignore all of those.
Yeah, so Jay's been collecting games for a long time, not just NES, but every system. And when we had come up with the concept, he had 110 games. A lot of them, more of the rare pieces, because as collectors, when you see something that's great, that's what you're going to grab. You're not going to grab the $4 Formula One racing NES game and be excited about it on a Saturday at a flea market. So he had a lot of stuff, and that was one of the hardest things for him when we're on the journey. So he'd see like, I don't know, Mighty Final Fight or something like that. And he already had it in box, like complete in his collection. And he'd have to spend, you know, 50 to 100 bucks to get it again, or getting all the Mega Man games, getting all the Castlevanias, getting Contra Force, getting, you know, Stack Up, which he had 3 before he started the collection. He had 3 Stack Ups, and for anybody that knows about those black box games, that's one of the hardest ones to get, and it's not cheap. And then, you know, just going through that, and he's like, there's a point in the journey he's really questioning whether he can do it or not. And without giving it away, it's like, well, if I fail, at least I have these games already in my collection. You know, if I'd rather not buy the games that I already have and still try to get the games that I don't have, so that if I don't complete the challenge, then I still have that much more closer to a complete collection, which is, you know, what any collector would want anyways. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. You gotta go for the whole
Shake
thing.
it really hard and snap him out of that.
Yeah.
And also, although the film got crowd-financed, his purchases were made with his own money. He's not a rich man, so he...
Yeah, works 9 to 5 at a video game corporate chain that you can probably guess, the Canadian version. We're not allowed to mention it in the film, and probably shouldn't mention it here, but you can probably guess.
So some people have suggested that the money that was financing the film was used to purchase some of the higher end games too. That absolutely did not happen.
Yeah.
It's all out of his own wallet. So he was wincing every time he'd have to pull out the wad of money and start paying with it, because he worked 9 to 5 to pay for everything.
And Kickstarter was a really interesting process, and if you guys have questions about how that whole thing transpires and what it's like to run a Kickstarter campaign, I'd be more than happy to answer questions about that. But we raised, I think, $16,800 on Kickstarter. Kickstarter and Amazon Payments, the 2 entities that allow you to get the payments, take their fees, which is roughly about 10%, and then you have to hope that everybody has money that they pledge. Not everybody had money that they pledged, so we actually ended up with far less than what we were hoping for. And if you do the math for gas on 30 days, going from Toronto to Houston and back, let alone a whole bunch of other cities.
And modest hotel rooms.
Modest hotel rooms, feeding 5 people, crew-wise. It adds up really fast to much more than that kind of amount. So, well, we're super appreciative of Kickstarter and stuff like that, and that's how we got the word out there and a lot of doors opened. It was by no means the entire film's budget, and it could not be. And, I mean, even if you guys look at the cost of 700 games, that kind of money wouldn't cover an entire NES collection anyways, if you wanted to, unless you got super lucky and you just found it in somebody's attic under a rubber tire. I don't know.
Well, there's some lucky finds too, but yeah, you're not going to put together a whole collection like that. I found it really fun watching Jay find some of the rarer cartridges that he had never seen before and didn't really know a whole lot about it, had never played before. And can we talk about the one in Oklahoma City? Because that's a hysterical story when he finally got to play that one.
Sure, yeah, that's one. Go ahead.
Okay, so it seemed like a dead space between Texas and Indiana when we're coming back towards Canada, which is where the road trip started. And we were desperate to find somebody to do business with and shop from, and we found a collector in Oklahoma City. So we had to drive 10 hours, something like that.
Well, side note, we had called this collector. He had no idea that we were a film crew, but we knew that he sold games out of his garage, and we just wanted to check it because we're on a road trip. We just wanted to talk by and, you know, grab some games. When you tell people you're a film crew and you're trying to film stuff, it scares them off, so it's easier to kind of tell them in person versus on the phone where they can hang up. So we just kind of approached people and retailers in person, and hopefully they would let us film. And not everybody did, but this guy was cool.
This guy was really cool and had a really
And he saw us coming. He researched us.
Yeah, he actually did some online research and knew we were coming. He's like, yeah, I know all you guys. So Jay was hunting through all his stuff and found Color a Dinosaur. Anybody have that one?
Have you guys heard of Color Dinosaur? Okay, 1, 2.
He'd never seen it before.
For those of you that know Tommy Tallarico, it was the only NES game that he did the soundtrack for, and of course he's done, I think, more soundtracks than anybody else. He does video games live now, but he's famous, or infamous, for saying that programming for the NES was a disaster, and that game is horrible, and I can't wait for him to get him to sign my copy of Color Dinosaur.
So it was great. So Jay picks this thing up, negotiates for a while, and picks this thing up, and heads back to the hotel room. We're all completely fried. He's burned out. He's so excited because he's never played this card before, and puts it in the machine, opens it up, and it is literally the worst game. It's an awful game. It is basically a digital coloring book. There's music, yeah.
There's music when you select what image you would like to color. And when I say color, it's not like you move the D-pad so it shades. It's like using like paint bucket in Photoshop where you just click and it like fills with whatever design you want.
Your dinosaurs, one region of your dinosaur is now pink polka dots. It's the worst, awful game, and he was so
just
furious.
He went from here to, well, at least it's off the list. And now he's going to try to marathon it.
When he played this game, he was screaming, why does this exist? Why is it so much money?
But I got to keep playing it because it spent this much money. And
funny.
He's been threatening to marathon it for like 80 hours and stuff like that, just for ridiculous reasons.
I don't even understand how that would work, because there's no timer, there's nothing. There's nothing motivating you to go on any further with it. It's awful in every shape, every way.
Do you guys have questions at all about the trek, the cities we went to, the kinds of stores, what people think about retro here and there? Go ahead.
Who was your favorite person to interview? Who had the best interaction?
Good question.
It's a great question. They're all so different. Greg Pavich, creator of Cheaterman, publisher of Action 52, who's coming out with a new version of Cheaterman soon as well for iOS, which will be amazing from what we've seen. It's actually going to be a high-quality game.
Fascinating guy. He knows that that's a horrible game. He's in on it.
He's loving life. He's loving life.
He knows it's one of the worst games ever made, and he thinks it's hysterical, so he's actually going to come out with a good Cheaterman game. But he's brilliant and has made a lot of money doing really smart things, so I'm interested to see what
He took us out to dinner and he said, okay, here's the deal. Jay's a vegetarian, by the way. And he said, okay, so at this place you can either have chicken fried steak or fried chicken, nothing else. And that's literally the menu. You walk in there, it's chicken fried steak or fried chicken. So we all turned to Jay. He's like, oh, I'll just have salad or something. I don't know. But he was a really interesting guy from on the side who isn't like really a developer, he's a publisher. He saw the opportunity, bought into the industry, saw this Action 52 games in one, well, why wouldn't I want to put that out there? And he's basically been going on that ever since. So it's really interesting to get his perspective. Of course, interviewing Billy Mitchell at San Diego Comic-Con was amazing.
Meeting Billy Mitchell, pretty cool.
Question?
What were some of your favorite cartridges to grab?
Color a Dinosaur. Like
Obviously.
The best game ever made.
Here's the other thing that kind of happened. We all kind of got bit by the collecting bug too, watching Jay get all the stuff. So I don't really want to comment on what Jay got too much. I mean, yes, he did buy a lot of games and stuff like that. I won't tell you whether he got them all or not, but some of the ones I was able to score were DuckTales 2 and Rescue Rangers 2. Those were really fun. I grew up a huge Wizards and Warriors fan, so I got all three of those on the road. I got a lot of Genesis games too while I was on the road, which is cool, playing those stuff. No, it was always like, it was funny because I would go in the store first and find out where the NES games were, the cabinets, like the more expensive ones, and then the common stuff on the rack so I could set up the camera guys. And then Jay would always like look at me as I came out to see if there was like an expression on my face and like, oh my God, there was something there or something like that. So I had to play it cool. There was a few times I was tempted to say, hey, just put that Bubble 2 aside, and you know, we'll talk about it after Jay's done, or something like that, or just put Faria aside, or Panic Restaurant or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't really a competition. It was always him first, and then I'm trying to get out of collecting. I sold my toy collection to help pay for this film. I had a massive Masters of the Universe collection on blister card, and I sold essentially it all to help pay for the film. So it was really interesting for me to stop my collection and watch Jay amass one. Tyler.
In the trailer, there was a scene where Jay was holding Steam events. How much was that?
Well, we can't tell you that. But good eye. You, sir.
What is your
Honestly, in high school, many, many years ago, I asked if I could make a film so I didn't have to do essays. I said, the assignment was to write a story, and I said, why don't I just film it? It was a French class. I'm from Canada, so it's mandatory to take French. I took it all the way through university. My first 3 films were in French, and I basically did all those to get writing stuff, and then in university, my last 2 years, instead of doing like theses and papers, I said, why don't I just express these theories in the form of a film? So it was a great way to get out of work, and I just happened to love it and know what I wanted to do early on.
Oh, originally on your site, you claimed that no one else had the entire collection.
Mm-hmm.
Did we eventually come in that?
Yeah, so on Kickstarter, at first, there was, and we knew this was going to happen on purpose. It was almost kind of like a little bit of a bait to see who would kind of participate with us. We had claimed that nobody had an entire collection because we wanted people to come out and participate on our dock. Sure, it wasn't probably the best way to go about it, but Nintendo Age quickly got on our case about that, which was great. And we got to connect with a lot of people that are still on Nintendo Age, and we got to film a lot of complete collections, which was cool. Of course, the thing about Jay's collection is he was going after North American retail releases only. So no Nintendo World Championships, no Dinosaur Peak because that was a Blockbuster exclusive. Basically everything with the seal of approval that anybody could have got on the shelves anywhere when the NES was in its heyday. So it was really cool for Jay to see complete collections as he was trying to collect. He's like, oh my god, there's that there. And I mean complete collections, boxed, manual, like mint condition stuff.
Mind-blowing. They're mind-blowing, like mini museums hidden away in people's homes.
And just the way that people, and not just homes, like in vaults and back rooms, behind cabinets.
Seriously, vaults, fireproof vaults built into these modest
that we
shops.
were told would withstand 10,000 degrees for 3 hours, so don't get any ideas.
Is there any one city where you had like a really large hall you talked about?
Yeah, I think it was probably on one of the first treks. We took 2 big road trips through the States because Jay's in Canada and we had to balance his work schedule. He could only take so much time off. He's a manager at one of these corporate video game stores that shall not be mentioned. So we had to book his time off strategically, so we had like 10 days, back for 4 days, 10 days. And in Pittsburgh, we went to one store. We got to Pittsburgh at night because that was the tail end of this Columbus rival collector fiasco. We were supposed to be there earlier. So we got to Pittsburgh and this store is like, no, we don't allow filming, whatever. So we're like, okay, well that sucks. We'll try to hit a few other stores in the morning, then on our way to Indianapolis. So we hit another store in the morning. We just happened to have the regional DM there, the district manager. He's like, this is a great idea. I can see how this is gonna help our store. You guys are gonna put our name in the credits at the end. We're on board. I'm calling every store right now, sending an email. You're gonna film there. So it was like, again, green light. It was fantastic. And because people are smart enough to display all the rare games, pricier games in display cases, it's like Jay goes there first. Boom. He goes there, I'll take that. Okay, I'll take that unlicensed game too, just because I don't have it yet. So this is where his budget, because it's a finite amount, when he's spending on like other collectibles and unlicensed games, starts to go big time. But I would say in Pittsburgh,
Probably the biggest
the 6 stores that we hit in Pittsburgh, he probably walked away with 78 games, 78 to 80 games in one day. Of course, in Du Bois, we went to a store called VGX. Du Bois in Pennsylvania is a really small town. Super great guys. They put our name on the marquee. They were supporting us on Kickstarter, as was Warp Zone in Columbus. But VGX basically gave Jay the deal of the century. They had 12 huge bins, like this big. They said, go nuts. All the titles are like $5 or less. Sports games are $1. Not stadium events. We wish. But so Jay picked up like 100 there. You know? So like between those 2 days, there's like almost 200 gone of the 700. So this is when, as a collector, like, oh, I can do this no problem. Who knows what the next store will get, right? And then you slip into that trap where it's like, oh, maybe the next store will be better stuff. And this is where he's like, well, you know where we're going. Just call them and see what games they have. It's like, no, because I got to see the reaction on your face when they don't have the games you need. You know?
He did come out with a big bag of stuff. He'd be glowing, but it was inevitable that about an hour after that, he'd be sitting in the van waiting for us to get to the next place, and then it would hit him how much money he spent. It's like,
Wham!
oh, wow. It's like, oh my God, I just dropped how much? Yeah, and he'd have buyer's remorse big time.
And then he would need to buy again to get him out of the swing.
Yeah.
He said the hardest time was honestly where he was cleaning that cartridge that was between the two trips to the US, to the States, where you guys are from, where I live now. He said that was the hardest because he had the momentum and he didn't want to lose it. So he'd done 9 days, he had to wait for 4 or 5 days before he could go again and not buy anything. He just wanted it to be over. And even though it was 30 days, it was probably actually closer to like 18 that he had because he had to work long hours. There was days that we couldn't film because Sarah, my DP, who's over there on camera, who worked on films like Kick-Ass and Scott Pilgrim, super talented gal. She was in Toronto, so she was 2 hours away from us. Jordan and my other producing teams had day jobs too. I had to do day jobs. I live in Las Vegas and I work for a poker company there. I had to do stuff there too. So there was just days that we couldn't film. So the 30 days is probably closer to 18. And when you take account into time travel and stuff like that, not literal flux capacitor time travel, but travel time, it just really counts against you. And he was depending on his checks that he was getting for his holidays too to help him. He's like, okay, well I'm getting paid in a week, so at least that helps the budget. So.
Yeah, he was still earning money to spend on the challenge while we were going. So the clock was ticking for 30 days, but we didn't have 30 full days to do it. Just real life got in the way of that too, so it made it a lot tougher.
Yeah.
Have you thought of the next project you want to work on?
The Color of the Dinosaur feature-length film.
I'm gonna try to get the rights to adapt it.
In 3D.
You bring an iPad to the theater and shake it. Yes, I mean, as a filmmaker, I've got tons of ideas. There's a lot of documentaries going on right now that we've been spitting around. There's potential spin-offs that we've talked about as well for this, because of the people that we've had access to.
Because of the fun we've had in this kind of subculture. Like the gaming community has been great. It's just a good time, and everybody really got behind it really, really quick. So now
that's
we're
an important thing.
Other things that we can play with.
You know, that's an important thing. I'll get to your question in just 1 second. The gaming community is so positive and so embracing. There's a lot of stereotypes that people are, you know, are fraggers and stuff like that. And you go online, you're playing PlayStation or Xbox, and everybody's chirping at one another and trolling online. I gotta tell you, after talking to so many people in so many different cities, this is the best community of people to be out there. And I'm so glad I got to know all you guys, not personally yet, but to be more ingrained in this community, because it is really a community. People choose to actively participate in the world of video games like no other community. And it's just really awesome that I have a film to contribute to that and share with you guys. We had a question?
What are your hopes and dreams for the film, and how are you going to distribute it?
Wow, that's a good question too. Well, we'll start with the second one since it's a lot easier. Hope to distribute it both digitally and physically on disc, Blu-ray, and DVD. The digital option is great because it allows us a lot of flexibility. So we're hoping for a 90 to 2 hour project runtime. But digitally, we want to make available the days in almost their entirety for what we shot. So you can see like fly on the wall, like day 1, like 35-minute cut, day 2. So you can see like days 1 through 30 if you want to watch and pay like, I don't know, $1 each or something like that if you're interested in more what happened or more of Jay's reaction, or full-length interviews with these guys. How many times you guys watch documentaries, you're like, oh, what else did this guy have to say? Because he's such a cool guy and he only got like 30 seconds. So we'd love to make those full-length things available, almost like basically digital special features. We got to get a distributor on board, of course, to have, you know, discs and Best Buy and stuff like that, but that's in the plan. My hopes and dreams for the film, that I can take it around to more events like this, share it with the actual culture. I'd love everybody to go home with a copy, show their friends. I'd love to sign copies for you guys, because when you guys come to the stuff like this, it means that everything that we went through for 30 plus days and still go through was worthwhile. I mean, we do it for our own reasons. I get to spend a whole summer with my best friend and a lot of my good colleagues and workmates. I mean, I can't ask for anything more than that. And I'm having the time of my life just being up here talking to you guys about it. I really already got my rewards for that. But to share it with you and show you what we think and our opinion and show Jay's journey and what the industry thinks, and really just let everybody know that the NES is the best system out there. Regardless of what the best library is, this is the most important system that ever existed, and it will never be duplicated again. Question?
Do you go into how much you actually spent?
No, that's a really good question. One thing that we avoided very specifically was Jay's budget and what the games cost. We went to dire lengths not to show negotiation too much with cost, because we don't want it to be about the money. We don't want it to be a Pawn Stars or American Pickers where the game is worth this, Jay got it for that, so we saved this. Jay talks about what his collection is worth every now and then, because we use an app from puregaming.org that rates the rarity of each game on a scale of 12, so a game will be 10 out of 12 or 12 out of 12, and it should be worth this, and that's his barometer that he kind of used for buying games. So if the app, for example, said this game is 10 and they have it for 5, well, then it's a good deal. But we don't ever disclose what his budget is. We talk about how much he spent in terms of percentage. At this store, I spent 2%, and I've only got about 8% left.
Yeah, you get enough information to know what he's up to, but some of the people that we were dealing with didn't want to broadcast the kind of numbers that were going back and forth either, because it really wasn't about that so much as his quest.
It's his quest, and it's really about the games. I don't want this to be about money. The fact that we're on Kickstarter raising money always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, so people know what we raise and stuff, which is fine. We all know it costs money to make movies and employ people.
Where it went was the most important thing. Like, people wanted to know where that money went. We've addressed that already, but
we also don't want to drive the value of these games up anymore, because the reseller market is something I hate. There's collectors, and then there's like reseller recollectors, where they collect games to put them out and recycle them for a profit, which is cool. I mean, that's being in business, right? But then there are people that just go out there and try to do that, and that's cool, but it's not what we want to showcase and broadcast. So the fact that I got DuckTales 2 for $100, okay? A really good price. That game is skyrocketing right now, especially with the HD re-release. I got Rescue Rangers for $70. You know, I don't care about that. Those games mean much more to me. I'm a huge fan of the Disney Capcom games. Those defined my childhood, because I sucked at Mega Man, but I was good at those games. So I will always love them.
it would really hurt us to know that inevitably, or by mistake, we ended up making it harder for other people to go through this quest if they wanted to, and just to enjoy these old cartridges. So
and there are people that want to do these similar quests out there, as we discovered.
Yeah, there's been a couple of copycats already. But
yeah.
the point is that we don't want to focus on the money spent on each cartridge, because that might make it harder for you guys to enjoy the games too. That would be a real bummer for us to know that we did that to you.
Yeah, that wouldn't be cool. That's some other, yeah, oh, go ahead, Jay.
What's your favorite personal Nintendo game?
DuckTales, easily DuckTales. Although Final Fantasy is up there, but they're kind of like apples and oranges. If I had one game that I could only have forever on the NES, or any game, it'd probably be Final Fantasy, just so I could play it over and over and over again. Love the epic storyline. My 4 stars? I play 4 fighters, because I know I'll never beat it, but it's so much fun to just breeze through the game. 4 fighters, man. We had to get the standalones as well, so something like Super Mario Brothers was one, Duck Hunt was one, Mario Duck Hunt was one, Mario Duck Hunt World Class Track Meet. And then there was Metroid original release, Metroid re-release. Then there was, we didn't get Tengen Tetris, but we had to get Nintendo Tetris. Then there was Pac-Man by Tengen and Pac-Man by Namco. So we did like all the individual releases, as long as it held the gold seal of approval. That's what Jay had to get, and it's available for retail sale, including stadium events.
Did you have to go ahead and get like spiritual warfare and Bible games?
No, because those were unlicensed games. Now I will say that Jay did pick up a slew of unlicensed games because he had never seen them before, because the town he lives in doesn't have a lot of that stuff. So he did end up getting a bunch of stuff, and we make a point of that, saying, Jay, you keep saying you don't have money to buy these games and you're worried about your budget, yet here you are buying unlicensed games that you don't need to complete this challenge. So the collector in him was starting overweighing the competitor in him. So it was an interesting struggle, especially where in the quest that it happened.
It got really hard for him to resist some of the things that he got exposed to because of all the doors that got opened for us as we kept going, and all these new people got involved.
And there's some really cool stuff that he saw. And there would be no collector that knew Jay, and that even if you don't know him, you see this stuff on screen. It's just like, you gotta get that when you have the chance.
It seems like that, inner struggle that he had kind of makes the story more interesting. Did you plan for that when you set the sidebars of the quest, or were you just thinking, well, this is a good list?
No, I knew that there was always going to be an inner debate. Knowing him for 30 years, I kind of know how he's going to be. And you see me a couple times in a couple clips, and then you'll hear a lot of voiceover with me guiding, because there's only so much time we can spend on each day in the film. And I really play devil's advocate with him to really illustrate that internal struggle that he had. Jay apologizes for not being here, by the way, too. He was supposed to catch a plane yesterday, and he had some major family issues that he could not really get away from, and I told him to stay home because, long story short, it was better that he stayed home, so he does apologize. But yeah, I really was a kind of bastard as much as I could, so he could illustrate his frustrations and his emotions as much as possible. Sarah pointed out yesterday when we were talking that he did not like the fact that I was constantly playing devil's advocate. He's like, what do you want from me? You always question my decisions and choices. Like, because people want to know why you were leaving this stuff behind and stuff like that. So we try to play off that as much as possible.
He was fun to play with. It was fun to manipulate. Like
Yes.
the gangster that lives in Indiana.
Yeah, so one of the last stops, we told them it's a private collection. We just had fun with him for no reason because we were loopy. We said, this guy has kind of got some underground dealings, so be careful what you say.
He's got connections with organized crime.
This is why he's got a lot of good games.
When we get there, we're gonna have to bag your head and walk you in. Like that's the guy won't let us see where the collection is. And he's like, what? Where are you guys taking me? Why?
And not that he was super gullible, but we planned this over like the course of a day and a half. Just dropping little hints like, oh, we heard from the guy. It's gonna be pushed later back because he's got business. You know, just little things just to mess with him. So, what? We amuse ourselves. Yeah.
Was it all game stores? Did you do any like thrift shopping or Craigslist deals?
Actually, yeah, we did. I mean, no Craigslist because we've been online. No online searching. No online searching, no eBay, no online anything. The closest we got to using online stuff was email communicating with people that we had made appointments with, and that would be on the personal collector side, that they knew we'd come by.
Flea markets.
We hit a big flea market in Houston, Traders Village. Anybody might know that brand and stuff like that. So that was cool on Labor Day weekend, and that's with Todd Rogers with us walking around in 105-degree heat, everybody sweating like crazy. But it was in Patrick Scott Patterson took us to a bunch of thrift stores in Denton, Texas, just outside of Dallas. Some little antique shops and some weird like sports stores that had NES games that he won't tell you about, and we'll obviously have the address shown in the credits because they helped us. But
a Frisbee golf store.
Frisbee golf store had NES games. Go figure.
Yeah.
But he knew it, and they had they had stuff like Battletoads, just not super rare, but game that people want, Turtles 3, Manhattan Project, and
we tried to get the whole experience. So we did flea markets and these little mom and pop shops, and then we did the chains and that kind of stuff. Like we give them a nice kind of selection of experiences too.
By and large, I would say 2/3 to 3/4 were game stores,
and private collections.
Other questions about Kickstarter or I don't know.
About the question that you closed most of the interviews with, which is a really interesting one. Why not?
Okay, so trying to figure out the best way to do it. So Nintendo's a participant on this documentary, as I've said before, and we're working out some of the details, how
Very
that works.
unusual.
And stuff
Nintendo
like
doesn't really normally get on board that kind of thing, but they could tell that we're not being exploitative.
Yeah, we're just, supporting their brand and saying, heck yes, yay Nintendo.
You guys are awesome. Please help us.
So everybody that we interviewed and stuff like that knew Nintendo was on board, and if not, we reminded them just as I did to you. And basically, I threw it out there. I said, you guys like video games and stuff like that. What if I told you Nintendo was releasing a brand new 8-bit game on Grey Cards soon, in the not too distant future?
What? What?
What if I told you it was Super Mario Bros. 4?
Yeah.
What?
So, I don't know what time it is, but it's probably a good time to get the heck out of here. So, that's kind of one of the closing things in the documentary. You see us asking all these collectors, all these industry icons, you see the reaction to it.
We're not confirming or denying this. We just wanted to see what they would do with this information.
What do you guys...
We can't tell you any more than that at this point in history.
See, I don't know where to go from here, because everybody's wanting to know how we know this and what's next.
Yeah, but it's a cool question, right? Like, we'd love to talk to each and every one of you here. What would you do with that, knowing that it were coming? How do you feel about it? That they would go back and they would make an actual cartridge game for a system.
We got a lot of interesting responses. We got, well, I would pay $19.99 for it, or I would pay full price. I would be their midnight lunch. I'd buy 6 copies. Yeah, I wouldn't buy it if there was a digital version, because I only want the physical, and I think it would cheapen it. I don't want to buy it if it's only 150 cards, like the DuckTales Gold card that came out. I would be excited. I would stop playing every other game and just want to love Nintendo again. I think that's the smartest thing Nintendo could ever do, because it shows that they still honor their old fans and they want to expand their base. I think that'd be the best marketing thing Nintendo could ever do, especially if they re-release the NES system as a commemorative 30-year thing, since it's 30 years, almost 2 years from now for the NES in North America, 30 years this year, Famicom. It's got a lot of interesting responses to it, so you'll see a bunch of them in the trailer, or in the film.
Where are we film at?
The film will hopefully be done next year. If you go to nesclubmovie.com, you can basically see more information there. Follow us on Facebook. That's the big thing. We have a bunch of stickers with us here. If you follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/the-NES Club, like our page. We can give you some stickers that, I don't know, are free. Like our page. And you'll follow all the updates. Follow us on Twitter, @the-NES Club, or @Pirate Productions, my production company. We're always tweeting back and forth about information, different people that we're meeting. I've posted tons of pics from this event alone right now, and guys, we're really open, so just come and talk to us. We want to engage in the community. Jay's a really open guy. He said specifically, tell everyone, even though I can't make it, let them know to look me up on Facebook. You know, talk about collecting
If
stuff.
you like him, you send him a message, he'll send you a message back.
Well, I don't want to guarantee, but it's probably going to happen.
At work.
So, yeah. I mean, Jay, you know what it's like talking to us and stuff like that. Jay's been a guy that saw our campaign online. He did his own video to support us. Jay does a lot of pickups and finds videos and stuff like that. He's a collector himself. We've never met until today, right now. But he knows how open we are talking with people. So.
Yeah, it helps out, spread the word. Like I say, if you like us on Facebook, then we can stay in touch with you and let you know what's going on.
The biggest thing is just tell everybody, you know, that this awesome documentary, this 8-bit road trip is coming hopefully next Labor Day for everybody to watch. And, you know, let's just remember Nintendo the best way possible. So going forward, we know that there's no doubt that Nintendo is the best company out there, and the NES was by far the best console ever created. Yes!
Debate.
All right. Is that fun?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we got like 5 minutes. I don't know if anybody has anything else, but definitely thank you guys for coming. Thanks to Chuck Van Pelt and the entire staff of PRGE for having us. Again, a big deal.
Thanks, Portland.
Yeah.
If anything strikes you through the weekend, we're going to be at our booth.
Yeah, we're at a booth. Come say hi if you want to talk a little bit more in depth. We'll be showing our trailer as well as extended interviews. So you'll see pretty much the entirety of the Billy Mitchell interview at our booth soon. Walter Day, I'll have a bunch of stuff, Ben Gold, Todd Rogers. So you can kind of see more of the stuff that we got to film and chat with them. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.